It's Money Monday, a segment here at 4 o'clock where we talk about easy to understand ways to navigate our finances. And we do it with the help of our financial expert and friend, Paul Hood from Hood CPAs. Paul, how was your weekend? How do you feel about that snow yesterday?
I feel like we've been invaded by Canada and we need to push that back, get rid of that white stuff.
Not a fan of the snow.
Bring in some sun and maybe some sand and a little water.
Oh, man. We have some great questions today. In fact, very timely for this time of year that came in over the past week. I want to start with Kimberly. Kimberly writes in asking you, how do you suggest we talk to our kids about scaling back this Christmas with gifts than what we would typically go all out? Of course, the pandemic has thrown off a lot of families this year. How do we let the kids know that, hey, you might not get 55 gifts this year?
Sure. Well, what I would say to Kimberly is she ought to get a book by a great author named Jim Stovall. It's his latest book called The Gift of Giving. And they ought to read that as parents and then talk to their kids about true joy comes from giving. And our kids don't like to hear that, but if you teach them early that maybe this year, instead of getting so many gifts, we're going to give to other people. We're going to go get something off the angel tree, or we're going to go help feed the homeless. There's a principle that Jim talks about in there that actually Napoleon Hill first talked about, and it's called the principle of reciprocity. And it is proven that you get from giving. There is whether you think it's God or Buddha or whatever, karma, there is, besides just joy, there are tangible benefits that come back around to people that understand the principle of the gift of giving. So I would read that book and include their kids in that process. Instead of just receiving, get them involved in giving.
Good advice. Todd writes in, of course, it's the end of the year. Todd says, what are the biggest mistakes people make when filling out their taxes?
Well, of course, people don't really file their taxes by hand anymore. They don't fill out the forms. So they go to one of these online often free tax programs. And like a lot of software, whether it's at work or at home, we tend to think that the software is absolutely perfect. And so the biggest mistake is people plug in numbers and then expect that result to be correct, even though they don't know what the end result should look like. There was actually a story of a lady a few years ago that did her own return that showed that she got $1 million refund, and the IRS actually sent it to her. But then, of course, they called her a few weeks later and said, hey, give us our money back. So it's not knowing what the end result is supposed to look like when using those software programs.
Last question goes to Misty. Misty wrote in this week asking you, as we set financial goals for the new year, what 3 things should we put at the top of our list?
Yeah, Misty, so that's real simple. Just like my first answer, the gift of giving. I personally think that giving, tithing, whatever, should be number 1 on your list. And it will pay back in dividends. It's whether it's a biblical thing or whatever, but it's proven. 2, you want to start saving. I don't care what financial picture you're in. You need to try to do 10% of your net or 3% of your gross, because that's going to condition you to live on less than what you have. And then obviously a budget. You want to sit down and write out and tell your money exactly where to go. Those would be the 3 things that I would tell her to focus on.
All right, great advice. As always, Paul, great to see you. And like Kimberly, Todd, and Misty, they were all watching and they wrote in with their question. If you're watching right now, you have a question that you want us to chat about next Monday, just send in your question. You can do it right now to moneymonday@griffin.news.